So, Abraham friends, Israel partners, shalom. So we are right now in the Neot Kdumim. That's the only biblical botanical park in Israel. It's just incredible to be here. And I came here because literally, you remember I updated you about the fires that were taking place throughout Israel, and part of this park, as I'm going to show you later on, was literally affected and burned. Thank God it was a biblical scale miracle that the entire park didn't go up on fire. And we came here with people of the JNF, Jewish National Fund. And you know, the first thing we do as Israelis, as Jewish people, the first thing we do when there is a disaster, we are pulling our socks together, as we say, and we're going to the place and we are rebuilding and reconstructing and replanting the trees that were lost, to show resilience to those who wants to burn us out of here. So I'll have the camera right now in my hands. I'm going to say thank you to Roman, who helps me, Al Techabe, and I'm going to take the camera and I'll show you what our people are doing. Okay, so that's what you can see here. It's just unbelievable. A group of young people from the US. They are on a JNF mission, and obviously they heard about the fires and what took place, and people came here and they're planting their trees and bringing life back again to that soil over here, to show resilience and to show strength and to show determination to all those who are trying to just burn out the country. And this is what we call now, there is this new form of terrorism, the arson terrorism. This is just terrible, but that's what we see. We see the whole beautiful group of people right now that have come here to plant their trees right here in the soil, in the ground of Israel. You see the flags of Israel. We see the flag of the JNF over here as well, Jewish National Fund. And this is what we're doing over here. We're right here in Neot Kdumim. This is one of the most excellent places in Israel. That's the only biblical botanical park in the whole country. And we can see here also this amazing biblical species. You see the fig tree right over here, and you see the olive tree right there, and next to the other olive tree on the left hand side with the little red flowers, that's the pomegranate trees. All the beautiful species of the land of Israel are here, and we are literally coming here to this incredible spot and planting trees and bringing life back to the soil of Israel. We're not going to get the terrorists any prizes for burning out our forests. We're going to be resilient and strong, and that's the beauty of being here in Israel. That's the beauty of the people that are coming all over, and I'm sure that there'll be many more missions now coming here to replant trees in the soil of Israel and bring the forest back to life. No prices for terror. Love you a lot, Dubi, and I'll see you soon.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Israel Update, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about the land of Israel. Now, I know that if you're watching this, it means that you either already love Israel or you have an interest in it. So I'm really trusting God that revelation and insight is going to flow into you and me as we speak today. So let's jump straight in. So the question of whether the land of Israel belongs to the Jews has been a very contentious issue in the church and in world politics. However, and I need to say this, we always go based on the word of God and not based on popular opinion. We always go, the word of God is eternal, it's unchanging, it can never, ever be taken away. So we go as Christians by what the word of God says, and so that is what we're going to look at. Psalm 122 says this: I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing in your gates, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built like a city that is closely compacted together. That is where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, to praise the name of the Lord, according to the statute given to Israel. There stand the thrones for judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls and security within your citadels. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your prosperity. That's a beautiful psalm. We know it well. We often quote verse 6 specifically about praying for the peace of Jerusalem. And in order to fulfill God's command to us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, we have to understand the faithfulness of God in restoring them to the land. God did not restore the land to the Jews because the Jews were good. He restored the land to them because he said he would, and he cannot lie. God has an inability to lie, and he promised the land to Abraham. In Genesis 13, verses 14 to 17, it says this: the Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, look around from where you are to the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, all the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go, walk the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. Then in Genesis 15, verses 17 to 21, it says, when the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed through the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, to your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. Then in Genesis 17, verses 7, 8, and 19, God says this: I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give to you as an everlasting possession, to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. These are very clear words by God spoken, and it's an eternal covenant. It's one that can never, ever be taken away. Psalm 105, verses 8 to 11 says this of God: he always stands by his covenant, the commitment he made to 1,000 generations. This is the covenant he made with Abram and the oath he swore to Isaac. He confirmed it to Jacob as a decree and to the people of Israel as a never-ending covenant. I will give you the land of Canaan as your special possession. So we can see that God gave this promise to Abraham. He confirmed it to Isaac and confirmed it to Jacob. The Lord reconfirmed this in Genesis 26. I don't know if I can't read it to you for the sake of time. In Genesis 26, and then he reconfirmed it to Jacob in Genesis 28. So this land was promised to all three patriarchs, and the boundaries were clearly established. God made the whole earth. God inhabits the whole earth, and God is the one who said, this is the portion of land on this earth that I have made, that I am giving to you, Abraham, and to your descendants as an everlasting covenant, one that can never be taken away. And the covenant God made with Abraham was based entirely upon himself. He swore by himself. He had no one greater by which to swear. And he said, because of me, because of my name, I'm giving this to you, and it is to be yours forever. Now, when we look at the history of Israel, and I'm only going to be a couple more minutes and then I'm going to finish this off in a second part. But if we look at the history of Israel really quickly, they went down into Egypt, where they became a nation under slavery. They were brought out sovereignly by God's delivering power. Then the law was given to them. Their culture and identity were established. The Aaronic and Levitical priesthood were established. Tabernacle worship was established, and the 12 tribes were set in order. As we read through the Old Testament, we see that this is what happened in the land of Israel, in the nation of Israel, among the people of Israel. Then they were brought to the promised land where they weren't able to go in. Then they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. They went in under Joshua, though, and conquered the land and settled it, and they had to fight so many nations for possession. But under David, the whole of the promised land became their inheritance. But then, after Solomon was the divided kingdom, then there was an exile. Then they returned from Babylonian exile after 70 years. They were resettled, but they never returned to their previous glory. Then we see what happened with Jesus. And then in 70 AD, there was the destruction of Jerusalem. Now, obviously, I don't have time to get into every single one of these points, and I've given a very, very huge history, a very, very brief summary. But this is what took place. And then for 1900 years after the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, Jews were dispersed across the nations of the world. And in Deuteronomy 28, we read portions of what would take place when there was a broken covenant, and that is exactly what happened. The covenant was broken by them. God never changed his mind, never turned his back, never changed what he always planned to give them, but there was a curse that came upon them. And as a result of that, there was 1900 years where Israel wasn't in her home, in this portion of land that God designated to her. But then we see what actually happens when God brings back the people of Israel. In Isaiah 11, verses 11 to 12, it says, "In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand a second time, to reclaim the surviving remnant of his people from Assyria, from Lower Egypt, from Utter Egypt, from Cush, from Elam, from Babylonia, from Hamath, and from the islands of the Mediterranean. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four quarters of the earth." And in next week's teaching segment, I'm going to examine how this prophecy was fulfilled and what God did in bringing about the nation of Israel again. So thank you so much for joining us today. And let me encourage you, when we give to the land of Israel, when we sow into Israel, we're sowing into eternity. This is something that is so close to God's heart, and we can never ever go wrong by giving into the part of God that he loves the most, which is the land of Israel. So let me encourage you, when you partner with us, that's part of what you're doing. And we are so grateful for your support, so grateful for everything that you guys do to make this show possible. So thank you so much, and remember to tune in next week. Every Friday we have a new episode on israelupdate.org, and in that teaching, I'm going to be speaking about how God brought Israel back as a nation and looking at the different prophecies that were fulfilled. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Israel Update is brought to you by the generous supporters of the Israel Partnership. Because of their love for Israel, we are able to bring you this show and continue to sow into the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. For more information on how to become a sustaining partner, please click the Israel Partner banner below.